Hey, what's up you guys? Akromaniac here. So for this video, what I really want to cover and convey and really get across are kind of just the core pieces and the foundational stuff when it comes to games like Rivals, or even just pertaining to Rivals altogether. Um, so this is kind of one of those videos where it's like, as a collective, as a community, sort of like the entire player base, you guys, you need to hear this. You know, like this has to sink in because this affects every single person's player experience. You know, like this is the philosophy that goes into these kinds of games, how it works from a foundational standpoint. And the thing is, this applies to ranked, it applies to quick play, it applies whether you're in a low elo and a high elo, whether you've been playing, you know, all different kinds of games, or first person shooters, or fighting games, or you're a competitive player in this area or whatnot. Like, all of that shit is kind of just irrelevant. And then even the core aspect of whether you're playing support, or you're running tank, or you're playing DPS, you know, or you're playing this character, or this character's S tier, all of that is irrelevant. The elims, the damage, how many people you resurrected, how much healing you got done, you know, how much damage you dished out by the end, how much damage you blocked, etc., etc. All those things are completely irrelevant. Like, these are things that you just have to grasp first, because everything trickles down to this core aspect of how these games just work. Like, basically, if you're not doing this, if you're not following this, then you're flat out not playing to win. You are not actually achieving what you need to get done to actually win. You know, and I would imagine everybody's experience, obviously you're there to have fun, but how is it fun to constantly lose over and over and over and over? You know, whether it's on your end that you're not, you know, up to par, or whether it's your teammates, or it's bad matchmaking, you know, or whatever it may be. Losing altogether is not fun. You know, I would imagine as a collective, people want to win. You want to understand how to win, you know, and that's basically what this video is going to cover, because you can learn all the little combos and the tricks and the character guides and little 60-minute videos as to why Scarlet Witch is broken, you know, even though she's not. And it's just like you can branch off into all these different things and all these different takes and all these different set plays and different methods of how to use a character, and all these kinds of guides. But the thing is, if you're still not playing to the core of the game, you still are not winning. You're not actually contributing. You know, so I'm really just trying to get across what these things are, and the mindset behind it, the meta behind it, and how to actually work towards all of these things, and how to also point it out to your teammates, you know, if they're not performing, you know, up to par, basically. You know, because when all is said and done, what it comes down to is that Rivals, what people need to grasp, the thing that you are partaking in, you going into this game, going into the character select, you know, trying to get a match going, what you are partaking in, the genre, what this thing is, it is a 3-role, team-based, objective game. And I'm listing it in those big categories, like I think that's the actual classification of it. So what that means is that the core of the game, the thing that you have to bear in mind, is that it is team based. It is one team versus another, team A versus team B. It is not this random player, you know, against maybe 3 people, and it's not 2 players versus potentially 6. It is one team versus the other. That is the core soul thing that you have to get across. It is a team based game. You have to work as a unit. You have to work as a team. Every single thing about the game, how it operates, what it's doing, what the win conditions are, what the losses are, how the characters are designed, every single thing, how the maps are, what the maps are even doing, every single facet of it, it's all revolving around the fact that it is a team-based game. You have to work together. You have to cooperate. You cannot be selfish. You cannot just be running off doing your own thing. You know, it is a team-based game. It's in the name itself. When you pop the game in, when you're queuing up for a match, you are fully expected to be a participant in a team. You are a teammate, plain and simply. That's what you have to get across. All players, universally, no matter where you land, that's what you have to get in your heads. So, that's covered. It is a team-based game. So how does one team win? The team wins with the one that collects the most points. Those points you earn by completing objectives. There is no possible way the game will not reward you any fucking point in the world. You can do 1,000,000 damage, you can do 100,000 healing, you can get 200 elims. None of that matters. This is what all players, you guys have to get across. None of that shit matters. Doesn't matter that you keep on getting a 5 kill, an ace, an ace, an ace, one after the other. All of that still, it doesn't matter. If you're not actually completing the objective, the game is not giving you the point. It does not care about your performance, plain and simply, if you're not completing the objective. And that's what people need to get their heads around, because they're literally virtually every single game that I play, at least one person is not paying attention to the objective, and they're just running off, especially when it's overtime. They're not paying any attention as to what the fuck is actually occurring, and it's happening too frequently that I legitimately think people are just not aware of it. So that's basically the whole reason why I'm making this video, because it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's more frustrating not even from just the player experience, but it's frustrating that there are this many people that are kind of just walking around aimlessly. And I don't think that anybody is really gearing towards educating them, because there's a lot of younger players and newer players altogether, or people that have never played these kinds of games that are now getting into it because it's Marvel, and it looks good and it's free to play and a lot of positive reviews and everything. There's nothing that is actually legitimately teaching people how the game operates and what you're supposed to be working towards. Everything is just too focused on the characters or what the tier list is. I'm trying to get rid of all that fluff. Forget all of that for the time being, because it will all make sense afterwards anyways. So again, you have to complete the objective in order to earn these points. If you are not completing the objective, whether it's capturing a point or it is escorting a payload or a hybrid of the two, it doesn't matter. If you're not actually doing it, you are simply not winning, flat out. Again, you can be doing 2,000,000 damage. You're still not winning if you're not completing the objective. And kind of rooting back to the whole genre classification, the way that you complete the objective is by working as a team. You have to function as a unit to complete the objective. The way that you complete the objective by working as a team is by feeding into and playing into the 3-role system that the game itself operates on. You have your tanks, which the game calls vanguards. You have your DPS, which the game calls duelists. And then your support are called your strategists. These aspects are crucial. This is what makes up a team. You have to basically find any kind of combination of whatever seems to work for you. You can have, it's a 6v6, the teams. 6 players versus 6 players. So if you do the math, if you do it logically, usually the way that works out is 2-2-2. 2 tank, 2 support, 2 DPS. But you can kind of toss it around in any kind of combination, so long as the team itself functions and works, and it does these core things. So that's what I'm saying. It's forget the tier list, forget the character, forget all that stuff. If you're not doing these things to now operate as a team, to play into the game, to complete the objective, because these are all the win cons. I'm not telling people that you got to be sweaty and this is how you're supposed to play at a high level, and this is how you're supposed to play, if you're expected to get into rank. Some people don't want to get into rank. Some people just enjoy playing quick play, but even if you're just playing quick play, these are still the things that apply to the game as a whole. It doesn't matter whether, again, it doesn't matter if you're in quick play or you're in ranked. The game still works the same exact way. You're still having to do the same exact things. And again, it's not trying to dictate and tell people you're supposed to do this. I'm telling you to walk a straight line, so you better walk a straight line. And if you stray off, now we're all fucked. It's not in that regard. It's more like, imagine a soccer field. The teams are playing soccer. They're supposed to run across, kicking the ball. And then there's that one teammate that is not running whatsoever. They are just walking. Yeah, technically you are participating. Yes, technically you are on the field, but you are not actually a contributing factor because you are not at the speed. You are not at that frequency. You're not at that wavelength that the rest of the team is on. So this is what I'm just trying to get across is these are the core foundational pieces that you simply just have to be working towards. If you're not doing this, plain and simply, if you're not checking off this box, you are not actually being effective. You are not being useful to your team. So basically, I kind of wanted to get like a picture of a Geodude or something. I still might. Like if anybody knows a Pokemon, Geodude is like this big rock, and then he has 2 arms, you know, and that he can just punch with. But he's basically, that's all he is. He's just a head and 2 arms, and he swings. I kind of want you guys to envision that as your team. Metaphorically, that kind of essentially is what the team itself is. That's what it comprises of. Except in one arm, you have a shield, in the other arm, you have a sword. It's basically when one team is versing the other, realistically what it is, what it kind of really comes down to, are 2 Geodudes with the sword and the shield fighting against each other. You have to work collectively as a unit to support one another, to assist one another, to defend one another, you know, and also to seize opportunities. But your collective efforts of doing that, that collaboration, what it truly amounts to is that aspect of having this character, like this little ball, that has a sword and a shield, and then its own body. The reason why I'm listing that metaphor is that your tank, which should be kind of a given, your tank is your shield. Your DPS are going to be your sword. They're going to be the thing that's slicing. And then the body itself, the piece that is trying to protect itself, the sensor, the soul, the life that is being given to animate everything, that is your support. Your support is your literal lifeline. So this is both directed towards support players and then also to every other player that isn't playing support, but just to be aware of the support role altogether, is that nothing is actually going to get done unless the support is providing the right amount of fuel. You know, they're kind of like the heartbeat of the team, essentially. They're literally the circulating blood to actually get this body moving so that the arm can swing and the arm can defend. You know? Because at the same time, it's trying to feed those things so that it can protect itself. So now on the side of people that are not playing support, this is why you have to defend your support players, plain and simply. Support's job altogether, because I see this issue a lot, and I think that this is a problem with game design, because, you know, the companies aren't really instructing this. They're not necessarily discouraging you to do this because they designed the characters this way, but your support, just because your character can do damage, it does not mean, it does not give you license to basically DPS the entire time until it becomes convenient to you to now start healing. Flip that. On default, you should always and forever be healing and supporting your team no matter what. Like, unless it's a time to actually defend yourself, or because your abilities might be on cooldown, or your healing is on cooldown, or you gotta recharge, or whatever it may be, now you swap off to the damaging side, you know. But if you're in the middle of a fight, for example, you know, 2 Geodudes are going at each other, you know, Team A is versing Team B. It's a brawl that's happening. It's a fight that's going on. If your sword, if your DPS is not really landing its shots, but it's kind of getting close, it's not up to you. It's not your decision to now basically shoot out your little magical fucking spark of a support hit, you know, to try to get that kill. Unless you're a character that is legitimately built to do that, someone like Luna, for example, or someone like Mantis, where they can actually potentially snipe characters. You know, unless it's an actual vicinity for you to viably do that, then yes, you do so. But even if you're Luna, with that damage that she can do, her potential with the headshot, you know, if there's an enemy flying away, but it's the middle of the fight, and your teammates are critical, no, do not shoot. Somebody else would get them. If they get away, so be it. Your team comes first as support. You have to support your team. You know, like, you have to keep the heartbeat going. You can't just stop the heartbeat because you got distracted by a little butterfly that's flying across. You know, like, and now on the flip side, this is why you have to defend your lifeline. You have to defend your support, both tanks and DPS. You know, like, if the enemy team, if you see somebody running past you or they're leaping over you as a tank, that doesn't mean it's like, oh, okay, I guess they're not focusing me, so I'm just going to keep them pushing forward. They just leaped right over you into the back of your team. Turn around, look at what they're doing. Same thing with DPS. If they're swinging around, let's say they hassle you. You know, you have like a Spider-Man trying to challenge the Doctor Strange, but he's just holding up his shield, and now Spider-Man just darts away, but he darts into the back of the team. Hello, tank, turn around. pay attention, defend. And it's the same thing with the DPS too. DPS, both things, sword and shield, you're supposed to protect your body. You're supposed to protect your heartbeat, protect your lifeline, you know? Like, that's just the philosophy. That's just how it works. That's the only effective way that you can get anything done and stay alive. Because now your lifeline dies, and now you're literally bleeding out because there is no more heartbeat to keep you up. And at the same time, for everybody really, not even just like tank and DPS, but also support too. The thing is, support, if you're getting dove, don't run even further away from your team, run towards your team. And at the same exact time for everybody, if enemy players, flankers, divers, whatever it may be, if they are diving into your team, you all jump them. You act like white blood cells. You guys have to defend yourselves. Like, your team, like, you're supposed to stay grouped up. You're supposed to stay in a unit. You know, no one is supposed to be setting foot in your unit that is not a part of your unit. If they set foot, you attack them. You lunge at them. You know, you basically make them pay for stepping foot in your territory. You do not just let an enemy player just walk in, do their fun, even potentially get a kill, and then just walk out completely untouched. That is insane, and that is actually a common problem that a lot of players, like that I'm seeing in a lot of players in a lot of matches. And it's realistically even a core thing as to why I'm even making this video in the first place. You know? So that's basically part number 2 now, is the tank. It's the shield. Because the shield is going to be the most effective way of actually having some semblance of defense. You know, that shield, when you can hold it up, is going to block incoming damage, and it can shield you, you know, from any kind of stray hits or projectiles or something's coming your way. They'll hold it up, you know, and at the same time, in the same token, you know, a shield can also be used offensively. I don't think any character has an animation like that. I mean, maybe Captain America, where they're holding up the shield and then they charge forward to, like, shove through. That's also the role of a tank. Like, look at his health bar right here. Doctor Strange, down below. This is the case with every character that is a tank. This is what classifies them. This is why they are a tank. His health is 650. If I wanted to be a support, let's say I'm being this character, look at my health, it's 250. That is a significant difference. If I am a DPS character, same difference. You know, some characters might have 275, 300, they can get armor. All of that is irrelevant, that doesn't actually matter. The thing is, their health pool is capped out to that 200, 300 range. Like, that's just what it is. Tanks, however, that's like every character. You know, tanks are tanks because they literally have double that health or more, and they have the capacity to increase their health even more beyond that, and simultaneously have additional defensive properties and endurance properties, you know, or escapes, so that way they can actually disengage from a fight, you know. And all of these things combined is to illustrate that it's like you are the shield. You are literally designed and built to face on that incoming damage. That is your design. So you as tank, you as vanguard, you players all together, you cannot be in the back. You are not supposed to be in the back. Like, you are supposed to be at the very front, always leading the charge. For that reason, at the same time now, for the rest of your teammates, if you're not playing tank, play with your tank. Because your tank is your defense, they are your shield. If your tank is going off to the left side, no, you do not go to the right and split push. That is how you just get easily picked off. You know, like, I think everyone's using this kind of, what's the word? I guess they're using their own experiences, like in a quick play match or something, where it's like there's like a stray Spider-Man from the enemy team, and he leaps in and he picks off a support, and I starts picking off a DPS, and then he just starts dismantling the team like one by one, you know. So it's like, it's kind of like it starts being encouraged. It's like, oh, you know, like these are like flanking characters, or these are diving characters, you know, and they're capable of doing A to Z, you know. Or on your own team, let's say you're playing Star-Lord, or you're playing Iron Man, you know, or even Storm, because this is like an infamous case, you know, and you're getting your kills and you're harassing a team all by yourself. No one is looking at you. No one is paying any attention to you. You are not being challenged with any kind of counterplay. This does not mean that what you're doing and what you're seeing is correct. It does not mean that you are actually contributing because you're getting your 40 kills with Storm and you're getting top damage with Storm against a team that literally paid you absolutely no mind and just let you get away with it. That should not be validation to continue doing what you're doing, you know? But that's kind of the negative side of these kinds of games, is that it doesn't really teach you, it doesn't reinforce that what you're doing is wrong. Because you see the numbers at the end, and you're like, oh look, top kills, oh look, top damage. Okay, but again, if you're not completing the objective, if you're not contributing, if you're not being useful, then it's irrelevant what you're doing, what those numbers even mean, you know? Then they're just numbers, that's all it is. They're numbers and they amount to nothing. So again, circling back, as tanks, you are the forefront. You are the thing that the team has to push with. You like with Strange, for example, with this. Look at how you're able to flicker this. You know, as a tank character, it's instantaneous, no cooldown. Strange, you are not supposed to be like this and being afraid to peek and everything. You can literally walk with your shield. And not only that, literally, not only that, you as a tank with this massive health pool, you were literally designed with the intention to actually take on incoming damage and attacks, even headshots, and still survive. You can get jumped and still survive because you were designed that way as a tank. Stop running away, tank players. Stop running away after every single little instance, and you're so fucking timid. You are the thing that has to push the team through. You are the sword that is trying to walk through all the gunfire. I mean, you're the shield, you know, that is trying to barricade their way through. Nothing is moving. There is no progress being made if you as a shield are literally not moving forward. If you are not creating space, there is no semblance of actual progress that is going to happen. Just flat out. It's not going to happen that way. And again, even as a tank too. Now, let's say you're in the middle of the fight. You are a tank. You're meant for the defense. Yes, you can do damage. Yes, there are a lot of tanks that are capable of actually melting and doing their combos and whatnot. Again, forget about that altogether. If there is a big fight going on and you're targeting characters, but then the rest of the enemy team is diverting their attention, they're not focusing you, run towards wherever they're running. Because you were the tank, you were the shield, you were the defense. If they are not firing at you, they're firing at your team. Go help your team. You were literally built to endure and to do that. And this is what I mean. It's like, it doesn't matter what tank you're playing. You were still supposed to do this, even if you're Venom. For example, Venom with all this health and his way to actually, like, his overshield ability. Look, 800 base health. That's a lot of fucking health. And then you can even potentially, like, double that on top of that too. You know, between, like, his ability and between his ultimate. Yeah, you can go into the back line and dive the enemy team. But all of that excessive health that you have would be so much more useful now helping out your team and just literally juggernauting in front of the enemy team, harassing them with your 2000 HP health, you know, while your team is now there to assist you as well, to keep you up. Because even if you're using a shield for offense, it still is a shield. It still is meant to endure, you know, and it has that durability. And then lastly, naturally, is the sword, the DPS, the thing that's slashing, the thing that's actually built and made to do damage. DPS, you are meant to inflict damage. Again, it's like realistically for like Scarlet players and Storm players, because I used it too, but then I also see footage and commentary and whatnot. Just because you have top damage altogether, this is for them and then also for any DPS. Just because you have top damage, that does not mean that you were actually doing the most. This character, for example, right in front of me, Venom, has 800 health. Let's say he uses his abilities and he gets himself up to 1500 health. Okay, cool. You just dumped and you just did 1200 damage onto him. Guess what? He still is not dead. You just burned through all of your abilities, and now he's getting healed back up. Oh, now he's back up to 800. You do 600 more. Damn, so close. But now he gets healed back up. You do another 600. And this keeps on going over and over and over. If you're not actually finishing off your targets, all that you're doing is feeding the enemy support. That's all that you're doing. You have to, it's not good enough that you're top damage. You have to be getting those kills. You have to be finishing people off. Like, because it's like that's the situation with characters like Storm and like Scarlet Witch, where it's like they're really not good because they don't have like those finishing factors. Storm has it with her goddess boost, where she can obviously pop the lightning that tracks, but it's such a clutch call because of how big of a cooldown it is, and it doesn't do that much damage. So they have to be pretty significantly low, and you have to be within range to do that, And I'm kind of drifting, but it's like a character like Storm, she can get jumped so easily. If you're that close to the enemy team and they're not jumping and killing you, you're just getting away with murder, flat out. There is no arguing against that. That is literally what's happening. You're just getting away with murder. But the thing is, so you're doing all this damage, but you're not getting kills. You're not even necessarily building your ult at the same rate, necessarily, because you might think, oh, okay, so if you're doing, like, let's say 5,000 worth of damage, so then the enemy support is healing 5,000 worth, it's going to be relative, right? Like the ult charge is going to be relative to the difference of each character. No, not necessarily, because that might be 5,000 damage from you. Let's say you build 15% ult from doing that. If another one of your teammates does that much too, that is not going towards your ult charge. Your ult charge is specific to what you yourself are doing. So let's say you built 15% as DPS from doing all this damage, but you got no kills. But oh, you're building your ult, Obviously, if you do this tactically, that's a different story. I'm just saying in general. Typically, it's not done this way. You do 15%, for your ult charge, and then your other DPS does 15% for their ult charge, and then your tanks are also, they're contributing. Maybe this one got 10%, the other one got 10%. That's all relative. Your tank still only made 10%. You yourself only made 15%. Your other DPS only made 15%. But guess what? The enemy support now is having all of that cumulative percentage combined fed into their ult charge. So while your ult getting 15%, 10%, that support, enemy support, literally just gained 60, 70 in that instance. And this is what people are not grasping. Like, this is what you don't understand about the flow of these kinds of games, how it operates. And this is why you can't essentially push through half of the time. Because you're so busy emptying out all of these resources, trying to melt, and they're not melting. Hey, guess what? Do you know why they're not melting? It's because the support is keeping them alive. So you, as the sword, you as the thing that is meant to inflict damage, you have to focus the support first. You have to get a cut into the lifeline. You have to make it bleed. That's the only way that you can really take it apart. That's the only proven way that it effectively works. Obviously, you can get around a pick here and there, get a straight shot, whatever. Solo ult somebody, that's its own thing. But what I'm saying is that still isn't a guarantee. Like, especially with support characters. Again, let's say you kill a tank, but now you're going up against an Atom. Atom resurrects. Or Rocket has his resurrect thing, and then they come right back. Or it's Doctor Strange that you kill, he gets back to spawn, and then he makes a portal or something. I guess that's different, because that's not really leaning into the support argument, but whole point is that just because you manage to kill 1 or 2 people doesn't necessarily mean that you could just now rush in if both supports are still alive. The lifeline is still alive, so they still have a chance of actually enduring and actually sustaining the fight. Oh, that was the example. Let's say you kill Strange, then you kill somebody else, the support is still alive. Let's say it's Mantis, or it's Luna, or it's even Cloak and Dagger. Well, guess what? Now they're contesting the point with basically immortality long enough that Strange can now come back from spawn with the portal with his teammate, and now the whole team is back. And now they're all sustaining. because you did not get the support first. You have to dismantle the heals first. You have to make the enemy team bleed. That is the only actual way that it works. Because I see DPS too many times, like the sword itself. They keep on fucking swiping at the shield. They keep on pumping it into the tank, and the tank just keeps on regenerating. And it's like, I don't really get how it doesn't click yet. So it's like, I feel like it has to be said, because I guess it's just like, it's not clicking. Like, I don't think that people are really processing it. Because at the same time too, like even in my Grandmaster games, which I think obviously a lot of people are very clearly boosted into these ranks. But like even in those kinds of games, supposedly a high elo now, the thing is you still have tanks trying to do the same thing. Like tanks, they're basically diving into the team. Like you'll have a Venom that will dive in with his ult, or you have a Penny charge in with her ult, or you have a Thor dive in on them with his ult, and then they're gonna focus the other tank instead of the support that is right there, that is critical. Like it's insane. Like but that's what I'm saying. I don't think that players actually understand the cause and effect. I don't think that you guys actually understand the flow of these kinds of games. Games like this, or a game like Overwatch. You know, like I really don't think that it clicks. Like I don't think that it's apparent what's there. But that's kind of like, long story short, that's basically everything that I wanted to encompass, because this is just how it synergizes. With DPS, it's like you are the thing that's meant to do damage, you're meant to cut, you're meant to swipe, you know? So you have to keep on retreating to basically sharpen yourself. The support is what's sharpening you up, you know? It's like you do some damage, you get dull, you know, you get brittle, the support sharpens you, cleans you right up. So you get back in to do it again. On both sides. Now that all of it is coming full circle, you know, you have your sword and your shield, and then the little body, the life force itself. If the sword is not doing effective damage, the sword needs to choose better spots to hit, and or it needs to be doing more damage. It needs to find some way to do more damage. It is not your job now as the shield to try to overcompensate for the DPS, for the sword. And even more so, don't throw yourself. Like doing like a shield toss, like literally chucking the shield into the enemy team, hoping it might hurt them, you know? Now the shield is completely in enemy territory, entirely detached from everybody, and now the body has to decide, do I just stay together and just try to defend my one arm, you know, that has the sword? Or do I split myself in half, try to retrieve the shield that is in enemy territory, potentially die, and then everybody dies, causing a whole domino effect, you know? And it's like, support should not be having to make those decisions, and at the same exact time, they realistically should not be making those decisions altogether. Like, if, realistically, I'm just trying to be very transparent about it, very obvious. If your teammates are just that stupid, then just let them go in and die alone. Like, because you can't assist that. Just logically, it's very easy to conceptualize. It's one team versus another. It is 6 players versus 6 players. What are your odds? What percentage do you really think you have as one player, doesn't matter who, but one player diving into 6 by yourself, completely detached from your team? What exactly do you think the odds are of you succeeding? Okay, let's say you miscalculated, it doesn't work out the first time. Why are you doing it again? Why are you doing it a 3rd time, a 4th time, a 5th time, a 6th time? Like, it's absurd. And that's really kind of just, yeah, that's really all of it just wrapped up, because I really want to make like combo videos, or not combo videos, but like character guides. Like, that's really just what I was trying to get across, what I was trying to get out. Like, I really want to do one for Cloak and Dagger, because I can really go in depth as to what the support role is, like how it functions in this game and what you're supposed to be doing. This is all just like a broad breakdown of what it is. Just because if you can simply just process this, then you should and you will actually just have better games altogether. You know, just bear it in mind again, because your support. If you were meant to be a DPS, you would have been labeled DPS and you would have been in the DPS category, and you would not be healing if you were meant to be a DPS. But that's not the case. You were a support. So stop fucking DPSing all game long. You know, unless you're someone like Mantis that needs to refuel her shit, you know, and that's why she's shooting, or someone like Luna as well, you know. You have the capacity to be doing damage. Your first and sole objective, and the only objective that you should be fucking doing as support, is healing your team. If nothing is occurring, it is not for you to go fishing, trying to get a pick, trying to get a stray shot, trying to do all this extra stuff. Like, dude, if there are things occurring, if your team is still critical, if people still need heals, get all of that done first. It's kind of like you're sort of somewhat free to sort of like wander off, do other stuff, but make sure that your job is done first. As support, your job is to heal. Heal. Like, it's not a challenge to see the enemy team and how many picks you can get. Your challenge is trying to make sure that your teammates don't even die in the first place. You're not trying to have their deaths as a whole. You are not trying to rack up your assists. You are not trying to rack up your elims. You are not trying to rack up necessarily, you know, what your damage boost is, or even necessarily your heals. Like, obviously that is kind of the byproduct of what you're doing. But your first and foremost objective, what has to occur, is whatever it is that you're doing, you have to prevent your team from dying. That is what you are. You are that lifeline. You are support. That is what you're supposed to be doing. Tanks. You are supposed to be pushing up. You are the sole thing that is leading the team. So again, and then everybody else, you have to be following your tanks for this reason. Even if it's a dive tank, it doesn't necessarily matter. You still follow them. You still have to go through with them, because that's going on the assumption that everything is just going to go perfect to plan. There's, you know, you're just fighting against AI. They're never going to see it coming. They have no mentality of their own, and it's just going to work out, just all hunky-dory. You still stay with that dive tank, because now if you get dove, that tank is still a tank, and they're there to still protect you. And then again, DPS. DPS, you were DPS. You were the sword. You were the thing that is meant to inflict damage. You are supposed to hurt. So you have to get the job done. If it's not working, you have to switch. Either switch the character or switch to another role with somebody else. You know, because even though the sword can be efficient in this whole analogy, you can still run something like 3 tanks, 3 support. You know, you can turn that shield into an offense. You can turn that impeccable defense into being an actual oppressive offense. You can work around and do that. But as you can imagine, you don't necessarily have the same exact force. You know, like you don't have the same cutting abilities, you know, per se. Because you took out the sword to basically reinforce the shield itself. So it's like, it's not saying that it's wrong. Sometimes you will have to do that, you know, but if that's the alternative, you as a team, when I'm saying to everybody, to all players, you have to work with it. You have to work alongside it. You know, this is kind of like worst comes to worst. If you're DPS, if no one's capable of actually being DPS, then just go 3 and 3. 3 tanks, 3 support. You know, like that's just the only way that it's actually going to work, or that's the only way that you can at least sustain yourselves long enough to figure out how to adjust things. What really needs to change, you know? Because when you actually have that kind of sustain, when you can endure in a fight, where you can actually brawl a little bit, you're at least able to sort of take notice as to where most of the damage is coming in, you know, or where most of the damage is not being effective. But that's all just, I'm kind of getting into more in-depth topics that I really wanted to, but that was basically it for this video. I really would appreciate it if you guys share it and you comment, either feedback or opinions or your own takes and whatnot, just because it's like, again, I really want this to spread because I need everybody to fucking understand this, you know, like, these are just essentially the rules of the game. This is just how it operates at a base level. Because again, if you're playing support, doesn't matter what kind of support you're playing, this is still the core thing. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Same thing with DPS, same thing with tank. You're supposed to play your respective role. You're playing these respective roles because you have to work together as a team. Why are you working together as a team? So that you can complete the objective. You are completing that objective so that you can earn a point. Because the team that you're on versus the enemy team, the team with the most points in the end is the winner. So you're not doing that whole line of being a part of the team, contributing to your team, working as a team to complete the objective, completing the objective to earn a point. If you're not earning those points, you are simply not winning. Like, you can be doing everything else in the world, it doesn't matter. You are not winning, and you are not helping your team win if you are not doing these things, plain and simply. But yeah, that's basically it for this video. And yeah, probably the next one will just be like a cloak and dagger guide. But yeah, that's basically it. I hope you guys have a good day or night, and take care.